Hello guys, my name is Troy and welcome back to my booktube channel. Welcome to February. It is February 1st by the time I'm recording this, and also the day that most of you guys are going to see this. I hope everyone's reading month for January went super great. I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below. In this video, I'm going to be going over the 5 books I read in January, and this actually equated to a total of 2,166 pages, which is great that I had a lot of time for reading. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the summary of each book that I read, and I'm also going to be sharing my thoughts and a little review, and I also wrote down some topics that I want to talk about for each book, so that's great. And then at the end, I'm going to pick one of these books, but one of these books is going to be my favorite of the month, and I'll talk to you guys about that as well. Thank you guys so much for 500 subscribers. I'm not going to go too deep into this because my 500 subscriber special will be going out on Wednesday, and I'll do a lot more talking about this, but like essentially you guys are really helping me achieve my dreams, and you guys are just amazing. Like your comments, I literally get so emotional sometimes because of your comments. They're so sweet, they're so kind, and your comments are really the things that are motivating me to get out of bed and film, and you just make me kind of feel like I have a place in the world, so that's amazing. Let's get on with the video, but before we do, make sure to like this video. That actually really helps me if you just press that like button, and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to turn on post notifications, so click that notification bell. Only 100 of my subscribers have actually clicked that notification bell, so if you do, you'll be able to get notified when I upload new content, and that's amazing. All right, let's get on with my first book. So the first book that I read this month, and I will be uploading a reading vlog of this soon, was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. This was an amazing start to 2020, and I'll tell you guys why after I tell you guys about the summary of this book. So basically, this book is set with this main character named Shane. Shane is a college student, and she is studying abroad because she wants a second chance at college. Her pre-college life, or her first kind of college experience before her travel abroad was really bad. You know, she had no friends, she was pre-med, she had amazing grades and happy parents, but you know, she spent the weekends alone. There's zero romance, so she wanted a do-over, and so she made this fake brochure to her parents, and she decided to just go on a whim and travel to London to not go down the pre-med path and actually pursue creative writing. And you know, so she's trying to kind of mix things up. She's trying to actually make friends, and she's trying to find a romance in London, and that's exactly what she tries to do. She makes a lot of friends. She meets this boy named Shane, who she, you know, immediately, Shane meets this boy named Pilot, who, again, she's really interested in, and she kind of starts to grow a passion for it throughout the novel. And so basically this book is just, you know, her adventure through London and different places that she goes to travel with, and her friends, and, you know, this romance with Shane. And it's all about, again, doing what you want, really, you know, taking back your life, and again, second chances are awesome. And so, yeah, this book about second chances, basically, and there's even like a fantastical element woven in. And so, like, this was a very powerful book to me, and I just wanted to say kind of like my kind of thoughts. So the first thing is, it's very relatable. Like, I was in my other YouTube channel, the KOTLC Fanbase, and I was just like, this is not doing, you know, this is not kind of going where I want it to go, and I don't want to be doing this KOTLC content like stuck, you know, just doing this limited one series content. I want to talk about all the books. And so I, you know, started my YouTube channel as a second chance. Like, this was very relatable in that, like, you should pursue the things that you want to pursue. If you want to pursue creative writing like Shane did, go ahead and you can make something out of it. And this was just like such a powerful message. Like, if your parents are forcing you down a path that you don't want to go down, like, don't do that. Like, you do what you want to do. Like, it's so extremely important to do what you want to do with your life, and this is a great example of this. Such a powerful message, and I needed to kind of read this in 2020 because 2020 is the year where I plan to fight back, take my life in my own hands. And then the other thing is like the diverse set of characters. Again, this book is so good with the different character types. Like, there's like the loud and bubbly one, there's kind of the, you know, quiet one, and there's the, you know, mysterious guy, there's the loud, again, like, there's just such a diverse set of characters with different backgrounds, and you know, all these kind of personalities mix and make such a great friend dynamic, because a lot of this book is just a group of friends, you know, traveling through this study abroad experience, and just the group, the friends, they all have these different personality types, and they all worked so well together, and I really love that dynamic. And then I also really like the travel element too, like where inside the study abroad London trip, like we also get to go to different places like London or no, sorry, like Paris or Rome or Greece or whatever. And like, I know a lot about these places, so I can be like, oh, I know about the Eiffel Tower, or oh, I can know about this certain place because I do know. And you know, I just kind of, it's easy for me to be like, hey, I know where that is, and it's just kind of like a, you know, an extra added fun into this book. And then lastly, the fantasy element. Oh my gosh, there is the fantasy element introduced in these second half of the book, and it really makes things so much more magical and so much more interesting to read from. And so again, this was just such an amazing story, and I need to reread this like every so often. It was such a powerful story, and I really need to read this in January. Okay, so the next book that I read was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, and I was so glad to finish this one because it took me the most time to read. Probably took me 2/3 of January to finish this book, and yeah, it just wasn't a great optimal kind of reading situation for me because it did take me again so long. It took me like 2 to 3 weeks to finish this one, and it prohibited a lot of reading from going on, but it was a good book, I should say. Just like, it's again, Sarah J. Maas always kind of concludes her last book with a very fast plot. She has a lot of stuff to go on because she realizes that she doesn't have enough room, and so she speeds it up, and the plots are always so great in here. And I can't really explain the book because it's kind of the last book in a series, but all I'll say is it all comes down to a war, and so everything that happens in the first 2 books comes to this giant war with the Fae, these other Fae groups, and the humans, and there's just this huge war, and Feyre needs to win this war. And so basically this book is about a war, and you know, her trying to travel and rally allies, and you know, get people on her side and get like weapons and all that stuff, and like train people, and you know, just get ready for war, and then eventually go into the war. And so this book was so good. This was such a powerful story. Like all the emotions, all of the kind of characters, and there were some kind of betrayals and the opposite of betrayals, and there was some really emotional moments where there was just kind of there's just some real moments in here. The story was so vivid, such a beautiful written story, and I'm always admiring like kind of Sarah J. Maas's writing. The plot, again, it was really fast, it was beautifully written. I think there's different perspectives, if I'm not kind of mistaken. Just the way we get to explore the land, the settings, the deaths, everything was written so beautifully again, and it really wraps up the series well. And again, it brings up some, you know, darker topics and some lighter topics, and it was just an enveloping book. Like, it was just so much pages of amazingness, and I could not stop myself from smiling at the end and crying at the end, and it was beautiful, and everything wrapped up very nicely. And like I said, I know that a story is going to end good. Like, you know how it'll make you think that, oh, everything's not going to be right in the end. Well, you know, everything does happen right in the end, and it's not a spoiler. Like, it happens in every book series. There's a happy ending. Like, I'm yet to kind of see a sad ending except for Mockingjay. I want more of that, but I know that, you know, Sarah J. Maas is not the author that's going to leave us on a bad ending. But then she leads into A Court of Frost and Starlight book that you'll learn about in a second that was not a good book. But again, I love this world. I love Fae. I love the world building. I love the language. I love every kind of descriptive word. I love every single word that Sarah J. Maas put into this, and I really hope you guys check out this series, and I think that summed up all my thoughts. Next up is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. This book was so amazing, and I definitely recommend this to you guys. That's why I probably will be doing a review on this book pretty soon. So this book is about a kind of murder case in 1936. It's a fake murder case, it's a fictional story, but in 1936, Ellingham Academy's kind of famous private school owner, his wife and kid is murdered, and only what's left is a mocking riddle listing different methods of murder, signed at the bottom, Truly Devious. And this case was one of the most groundbreaking cases, and it was worked on by so many detectives, and was just, again, one of the most compelling cases in history because it was fictional. And so then decades later, Stevie Bell is set on finding the answer to this case, so she goes to Ellingham Academy. She's accepted into the academy because the academy is still running, and she goes there and she's trying to solve this mystery. But first, she must balance the life with her friends and school and these secret projects that she's working on. But then Truly Devious strikes again, and there is a murder at Ellingham Academy, and Stevie and her friends must figure out what the heck happened and find out who this murderer is before, you know, more murders happen and before anything bad happens. And so this was just such a compelling story because there's kind of these riddles that, you know, were in the past that apply to the future and help her solve the case. It was just a really cool kind of case, and I just like kind of how, you know, there's this mystery going on, and there's like it's really mysterious, and like we don't even know that the case was murder until later in the book. And then again, like the historical aspects, like how it relates to 1936, and there's the life then and just kind of how people lived back then. I loved how the author kind of, you know, fit that into schedule and just kind of made it feel a little bit different than the present tense, and I really like that. Also the academy feel with like all these kids going to this like rich private school, it was super cool, and you know, just kind of reflects on, it's like a little Hogwarts thing, how like the kids are invited, they all enter into this, you know, application, and some kids get picked for this amazing school. I love that aspect in any book, and it was perfect for a murder mystery, I think. There's also just such like a diverse cast of characters from literally every background, every, you know, gender, sexuality, ethnicity, race. Like there was just every kind of character in here that you could possibly imagine, and I really appreciate that. It was just such a diverse cast. Again, like that's what I like in books, because then you can see like all these different, you know, stories, because each character can really bring something different into the story, and that was really cool. And that's why it made it kind of, you know, like relatable in a sense, because I could relate to some characters and I couldn't relate to some, and you know, just having this diverse cast of characters makes it easy to relate to at least one. And then the last thing would be complex histories, like when you find out the murder at the end, and like the murderer, and like, you know, really what happened, you can just kind of see how much the author kind of really put into this. There is a lot of effort put into this book, just with the histories, because there were some things going on in the past that helped to the murder today, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed this story. Again, it was super good. I'm gonna do a review on this, I'm pretty sure. I just don't know how to word my thoughts right now. Yeah, I just really enjoyed this story. It's good all around. I loved every single page, and super compelling and entertaining. So the next book that I read was A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas, and this was the only book that I read this month that I felt kind of negatively about. Like it just didn't feel necessary, it felt boring, and it just didn't make sense to me. So the summary is basically this. So after the kind of first 3 books of the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, there is kind of like this gap, and then there's going to be another series, and this kind of just fills the gap, and it's kind of this kind of like Christmas special where there's a winter solstice, and basically they're just getting ready for this kind of, you know, winter solstice party or whatever, and there's this winter solstice party, and it's kind of like Christmas where they all like exchange presents, and most of the book is them just buying presents and giving them to each other and having a good time. That's pretty much the summary of this book, and it wasn't very good. So basically, like, I have kind of 3 main points as to why I didn't like this book, and probably gonna rate it just 3 stars, because it was unnecessary, it was boring, and it just didn't make sense. So the first part, it didn't make sense. Like during the war, like this kind of takes place after the war, and everyone has like this war trauma or whatever, and it just didn't make sense, because in the war they were all happy, they were having fun, and now suddenly after the war they're feeling bad. I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me, like how people just like it was such a sudden, like abrupt, like it just didn't feel like a flow, like everyone's like just all of a sudden really sad, and like, yeah, I don't know, it just didn't make sense, like, because like at the end of the war they were all happy, they were having a good time, it was a good resolution, and now everyone's sad, and so that didn't make sense. And then the second part, it was boring. It's literally just them buying presents and talking to each other a lot, and you know, having fun, and it's just like an extended epilogue. Basically it's a 200-page epilogue. It wasn't, again, it was just unnecessary. Like Sarah J. Maas probably just wanted to release a book about this series. Like it just wasn't necessary. Again, there was no plot, it was just literally them, again, buying presents and giving them to each other. It didn't really add to the story. So yeah, that's my review. So the final book that I'm kind of still finishing up, but I mostly read all of this, but so the final book that I read, or I mostly read all of this, I'm still kind of finishing it up. It was Cinder, the first book of the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. And so this book takes place in a new planet called New Beijing, where like humans and androids live simultaneously. It's a kind of futuristic, modern novel, like sci-fi. And so there's this girl named Cinder who is a cyborg, and so she is a mechanic. She's a gifted mechanic, and she works in a booth in a marketplace to earn her keep at her family's home. And this is a Cinderella kind of retelling, and so she's kind of the worker of her family. And so she's in there doing her mechanic work one day when the Prince of New Beijing comes to her booth and asks her to fix a drone. And so her life suddenly kind of gets upturned, and she has to, you know, kind of suddenly intertwined with Prince Kai, and she has to kind of fix this drone for him. And she says yes, and as soon as he leaves, there's this plague outbreak, which there's this plague ravaging the population. It's kind of killing off so many people. It's killing off the emperor of New Beijing, and it's just causing a lot of panic in this population. And so Cinder, of course, you know, she sees this person in the market outbreak with the plague and gets taken away, and so she kind of hurries home, you know, avoid contact with the plague, and she thinks she has the plague when she gets home, though. That's an important detail. And so when she does get home, she goes out to the junkyard to get an item to fix Prince Kai's drone when her sister wants to join Cinder. And so they two go to the junkyard to get this mag belt or some sort of object, and again there's another plague outbreak in the junkyard with her sister, and there's this like whole kind of emotional scene with her sister getting the plague, and you know, she has to call the quarantine people, and then the quarantine people come, and she's just like hugging her because Cinder's like, I don't care anymore, I must have the plague. So she just hugs her sister, and it turns out that Cinder doesn't have the plague, and so she gets shipped away. And there's just this whole kind of story about how these like people, how Cinder has all these secrets and how she's like can't get the plague, and there's just like this whole wonky story with this plague. I really don't know how to explain this, but it was just such a good story so far, and I just like the secrets that Cinder has in like the relationship with the Lunars, and it was a really good story. I hope that kind of gave you a good representation of the book. And so suddenly her whole life just upturns, and Cinder's sister is taken away, and then Cinder has to be volunteered for help, and you know, people are starting to like learn secrets about Cinder, and there's just this whole awkward story about the plague and Prince Kai and political stuff with Lunars and stuff. It's just a really complex story. And so I really like this book. It is just so quick. Like the pages are so like, the words are kind of big, and it's like, I don't know, it's just such a quick read. Like I can't really put this down. It's just such a lighthearted book. It's kind of funny. It's like, you know, it's really good. It's interesting with the plague. I love the plague. And it's actually funny because I was learning in school about like infections and zombies and stuff, and then 2 days later I pick up this book and it's about that. So that's kind of funny. And I like how it's kind of like dystopian, and how it brings like real world issues into the story, and so how like, you know, what the human population would look like in a few years and how like everything would be. And this is a little bit of fantasy, but it does bring in those real world issues with the humans having to leave the earth because of, you know, environmental stuff and the plagues. And I just like how it brings in those real world issues, even like inequality and like how humans are treating other humans, just because someone's 30% mechanic or 8% mechanic, and they get treated less of, and you know, androids and stuff aren't treated as good. And so there's just like this really complex dynamic with all these real world issues, and I really like that about this book. And also the characters are so unique, and they all feel very real. And also Cinder as a character, like she's just such a good character, and I really enjoyed this story. I don't want to ramble on too much about this, but yeah, Cinder was an amazing story, and I can't wait to finish the last 100 pages or so fully in the next 2 days. So yeah, yee! It is my favorite segment. It is Troy's Pick of the Month, where I get to pick the best book of the month, or just the most powerful book to me, and the book that I most enjoyed reading in January. So this book, I chose it for the powerful message that I really needed to, you know, see and read before I started January 2020, and that was Again But Better by Christine Riccio. Oh my gosh, guys, like I cannot stress enough the power this book has. The like, you know, really, you know, just like get stuff done. You can do it. Like you got it. Like do what you want to do in life. Don't let your parents choose that for you. Like I just loved that message, and I needed to hear that, especially because I was starting again. Like on that January 1st when I was reading this book, I was launching my new booktube channel, which it is really severe change in my life, and I needed to, you know, read that. Like I'm making a difference. Like I'm empowering myself. Just again, this was such an empowering book, such a powerful message, and I really needed to hear this. Like I really needed to read this book. It was just so fulfilling, so satisfying, and such an enjoyable book. And again, I want to read this like every 6 months or so because it's just so powerful, and it, you know, it reminds you of the things that are important in your life. And yeah, so that is my pick for the month. Definitely recommend this to you guys. Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I did film a reading vlog for this book, and it will be uploaded sometime in February. I did read it'll be like a 2-month-old reading vlog. I get it, but February will be a month with a few reading vlogs, I'm pretty sure, so that's fun. Okay, I think I have talked about all the books, so let's get into the outro. I hope you guys enjoyed this video of me talking about my 5 kind of books that I read in January and my top one that I really enjoyed. I hope you guys got some recommendations off of this. books. I probably recommend every single one except that A Court of Frost and Starlight one, because it was, again, just unnecessary and it felt like reading like a textbook. It's not really doing anything for me. Again, the 500 subscriber special will be going out on Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be an epic one. I get to film it tomorrow, and it's basically a whole day of me reading, so yes. Love that. So make sure to like this video. Again, guys, liking actually really helps me on YouTube, and you know, it actually does good things. Make sure to subscribe to my channel down below and click that notification bell. Again, you can get notified when I upload new videos, and you can comment, and you can get here early, and you can chat with me. It's gonna be great. I love chatting with you guys and, you know, seeing your comments. And speaking of comments, make sure to comment down below. Have you read any of these books? What did you read in January? What was your total page count? Mine was 2,166. I would love to chat with you about books, and I would love to hear your comments. You guys are amazing. And also, guys, make sure to check out this video up there. It's about my reading slumps. It is just a whole video about some tips to get yourself out of a reading slump, or how to avoid reading slumps and just increase your overall reading engagement, and maybe even increase the amount of time you can read in one day. I think I have talked about everything I need to. I hope you guys enjoyed this video again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!